People always ask me if living abroad was worth it or if I ever missed home. And after 10 years, I think I finally know how to answer that or somewhat answer that. If this is your first time watching, hello, my name is Amy and I'm an American living abroad. This winter marks 10 years since I first moved abroad. 6 years in France and now 4 years here in Vienna. So today I'm going to spend a quiet winter day painting and reflecting on what living abroad has taught me. So feel free to grab a warm drink, blanket, and sit with me while I tell you my story. I think growing up I was kind of the type of person who was always seeking adventure, and it pretty much carried out throughout adulthood. And so the best thing I think I would say I did during university was study abroad. But I still feel like it was too short. And after I came back, I told myself that I'm definitely going to go abroad again and I want to live abroad. But that kind of dream or didn't really come into fruition until many years later. And it was funny because I would say at that point in my life when I did move to France, I wouldn't say it was like the best time in my life to move, and I didn't really meticulously plan for it. It was just that a window of opportunity opened and I just took a leap of faith and I went. And my going though, when I left the US to France, I was going with, this thought in my head that I'm gonna try to stay here permanently. I didn't have plans to move back to the US. It wasn't something temporary. I had the plans to, be in France for a while. So I packed my suitcases and I was there for school initially. And I was living in an apartment with a French lady. She had one room that she rented out. I think she needed the money, but anyways, it was quite a nice experience. I would bike to school every day, and I would go through one of these big parks, and it was so beautiful. I remember just, actually it was funny. The first day when I arrived in school, I remember I was so late because I couldn't find parking for this bike. The bike was like one of those like rental bikes you pick up. And then when you pick up these kind of rental bikes, it's like they have stations throughout the city, and then you can only return them into these stations. And I remember I couldn't find a single parking space like nearby my school. And I was late for like an hour, I think. And it was hot, I was sweaty, and I was just like stressed out because I had actually never been to the school before. And so I'm like trying to find a place to park my bike, and then I'm like running around trying to find the school. And so yeah, I felt kind of embarrassed the fact that this grown woman, this adult, is like, flapping around trying to find it. But it turned out to be okay in the end. I still have a few contacts from the school that I keep in touch with, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, during my time there, it was really nice. I'd have to say though, my French at that time was not that great, even though I had taken, I had taken some courses in high school and in college, so I would say I had the foundations there. But in terms of like listening and speaking, it's just always so different when you are living in the country versus just like learning the language, somewhere else. So I'd have to say initially when I was there, yeah, it was difficult because when they would speak so fast. And there are days like I would come home and just be so fatigued. Like I was not physically fatigued. I would say I was more mentally fatigued by hearing the language all the time. And as beautiful as, French is, like just to be inundated with the whole day, it's just exhausting. But eventually things turned up. I was in the school, and then eventually I found a stage, or they call it a stage. It's an internship. So I was there for I think like 6 months or so. And then afterwards, I found work. And I was basically working my way up the, as you could say, the corporate ladder. Um, and you know what they say about the French people about being lazy and not working, that is not true at all because they do work. Um, it's just that the thing is though is that people in Europe are given like free, they're paid, I would say, relatively fairly, and there's a lot of rights for workers compared to, let's say, the US. But definitely was a learning. My first job was in a startup, so it was quite grueling, I would say, the work. And my bosses weren't, I would say, they weren't the best people at being managers. I don't know if you know these kinds of people in your life. They can run a business, but they're just not really good at managing people. Yeah, so it was an interesting experience working long hours in a startup and just being in that environment and, you know, French speaking. But I think one thing I would say is that it definitely, once you get more and more comfortable with the language, I feel like you start to get more confident in yourself. Eventually, I turned from, you know, I changed my jobs from the startup to like more like a bigger corporate companies. And yeah, and it's just very interesting, like learning how to market yourself and present yourself in another language is definitely a learning, having to pitch yourself. And but it's fun because then after a while you start to learn specific phrases or how they say things, and once you master the fluency of the language, then it becomes a lot easier to, you know, go for job interviews and understand what people are saying. But yeah, it was definitely, it took time. It took years to kind of learn that and to build that. When you're moving to another country, there is definitely this matter of loneliness. It does get there, or like unfamiliarity, I would say. And one of that is the obviously a big thing that, you know, that people deal with is the bureaucracy. And I would say one time I remember I was renewing my visa. I forgot if I was changing my status from like student to working, or I forgot what part of it was, right? But it's always kind of scary because, you know, you are a foreigner in the country and you just want to make sure you have all your documents and all your ducks lined up. And I remember, you know, you don't know who you're gonna get because there's like several people working at like the kiosks. So you get called like your number and then you kind of see like which window you're coming up to. And I remember the lady that was handling my documents, it was very interesting because I feel like a lot of times, I mean, I don't know about now, but in French bureaucracy, it really depends on their mood. If they're having a good day or a bad day, or whether they like you or not. And so I remember watching this lady. There was a guy who had gone before me, and she was all smiles, all happy, laughing, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe this will be good. But as soon as I went up to the kiosk, it was my turn to go, she was like upset. And I had, you know, I was just like, okay, whatever. I mean, government, you know, these kinds of things, especially in the visa offices and the bureaucracy, it's kind of known that these people are grumpy, so it's not like unexpected. So I was just like, okay, maybe she's like friends with that guy. I don't know. I went up there and she just had an attitude. I don't know how to explain it. She was just like, I don't like you. And, anyways, I had turned in all my documents, I had lined it up, and she basically was like, said I missed something. I can't remember exactly, but she said something like, I think, you know, like you're missing something. Do you even know what you're doing? Basically being very rude. But, you know, I kind of just shrugged it off because, you know, they can be rude. So it's not a surprise. But she took my documents, at least I thought she did. But eventually, what I think happened, and this is a conspiracy, okay, so don't quote me, but I really think she took my papers and just threw it in the trash. And here's the reason why, because usually they will give you a time. a time slot. They'll say after you've submitted your documents, you will hear back from, the office in like X number of weeks. And you have to remember, like, this is Europe, so things take a lot longer than you would say, like, in the US or, in Asia, right? It's not something you'll hear back the next day. So weeks, like 4 weeks, 8 weeks. I think it was 8 weeks, they said, after you submit your documents. So that's quite a bit of time, right? So I'm like waiting, waiting, waiting. And I don't really hear anything. Maybe I think this was like 6 weeks in, because sometimes they might get it done faster. So you might hear like feedback from, them submitting your documents or saying like, we received your documents, we are processing it, right? I hadn't heard anything. And so I think by the time it hit the 8th week, either I had a friend or anyways, I had somebody, or maybe I wrote an email. I can't really remember all the details, but anyways, asking them like, did you receive my documents? Like, I didn't get anything informing me that you're processing my documents, just to see. And their reply was like, no, we didn't receive anything. And that really, I don't know. And then when you hear that, you kind of, I say I was more freaked out than anything, because it's like, you don't want to get kicked out of the country and you want to get your visa done and your documents done in time to process your visa. So luckily, I had to get all these documents down. I had to print them all out and whatever again. Not that big of a deal, but I mean, it's just the fact that you have to do it again. And you have to go there, queue, wait in line and all that stuff, which could be hours. But luckily, the second time I went, the lady was super nice. And she, yeah, so that was fine. But I mean, those are just interesting experiences you get dealing with bureaucracy, I think, in France. Yes, there are times that you do feel lonely in a country, and and it doesn't matter where you live, because this is also could be your home country too. You could have those feelings of loneliness, but I think the most important is that no matter where you are, you have a community, or you have people who really just have your back. And I think I have been blessed so far, living here, living abroad, that there are people like that I've been surrounded with. So that's something that I'm very thankful for. So the question is, would you recommend living abroad, and to who? I think everyone should at least have some kind of experience of living abroad. I feel like it really opens your eyes to really see, another culture, another way of living, and also to see who you are and how much your culture also kind of drives you. Like, I remember, for example, out eating with friends, and we had some, American friends who came and visited, and I noticed that people in the US, they're definitely a lot more reliant on technology and on their phones. And in Europe, life is a lot more slow paced. It's not as quick. This is probably the same in Asia too, I'm thinking. But especially like in France, because I would go out more to restaurants, not so much here in Vienna, but in France, we would go out and, eat a lot and meet up with friends and eat in different restaurants. And also, sorry, side note, but the reason I would do that is because I feel like in France it's a lot more affordable to eat out. I wasn't like breaking the bank. I feel like here in Vienna it's a bit more expensive, and the food is also not that good. So sorry, I don't mean to offend people, but just personally myself, like, I don't find the food here as, yeah, I just don't find it as good as it was in France. And also my husband and I were both gluten intolerant. And so I feel like finding restaurants, especially here in Vienna, is a lot harder. I noticed that, these group of friends in the US, they just be on their phones. What I've noticed is that people in France, you're not like sitting there in a cafe, like having coffee with your friends or dinner with your friends and just like pulling out your phone. You're like really there in the moment with your friends and just talking, and even if you had really nothing, but you're just there to just be with your friends, like to really be in the moment. And I think that's something I really learned from living there, is put away your phone, your iPad, whatever it is that you have, and really just be there with the person you're with and just talk with them, be in the moment, and just to enjoy. And that's something I kind of miss. So to answer the big question is, was it worth it? And I would say yes. It was definitely worth it to leave the US and come live here, move abroad. And I don't regret anything, because all those years led me to where I am now. Did my life abroad turn out how you imagined? I would say no. Obviously, things are different. Life takes you to different paths. Actually, always thought I would just stay in France. I never really thought I'd move to Austria. It was never on my plan or radar, because my husband found work here. It was okay, let's just go. I mean, what else can I do, right? Followed him here, and here we're here now. And I do quite enjoy our life here. Obviously, the language is one thing, so I don't feel like I'm fully integrated into society. But I understand, like, realizing, well, at least I'm slowly realizing, it's just a process. It's gonna take time. And I always feel like kind of happy when I'm like, oh, I understood a little bit of what they said, even if I don't understand people like 100%. And I realize that's just gonna take time, and it's not gonna be like how it was when I was in France, because I am fluent in French. So yeah, it's just different. It's a different lifestyle. It's a different way of living, but I'm just slowly getting used to it and realizing that, yeah, these things take time. I don't think there's like a right time or, quote unquote, right way to live abroad. I know some people who move to Europe for retirement and don't really speak the language, right? So would you say that, oh, that was the wrong move? Like, no. I mean, if that's where life led them to, then they're there, And I know, like, some of our friends, they're retired and they speak Spanish fluently, but they're not in Spain. They're here in Vienna, So you can't really say, like, where's the right place or the right time for you. It's just, I feel like if there's a door that's opened before you, don't be afraid and just take it, because you never know what that door is going to lead to. So yeah, this is just an encouragement that if you're someone who's just dreaming of moving away one day, just go for it. Even do a little bit of research if you need to see what's out there, especially in the country you want to go to. How can I get there? Cost of living, but don't analyze it, I guess, too much, because what they call it, analysis paralysis. Like, you just don't want to be stuck where you are if your dream is to really go somewhere. I would say just go for it. And I'd love to hear for any of you, if you are, far away from home, where you are in your journey, and share it in the comments if you would like. And let me know what you think about this kind of video. Do you like these voiceovers? It's something different, but I've been wanting to do this actually for a while for my channel. So yeah, and a couple of other things I want to do. I want to do like a small creator, series, or a small YouTuber series. So let me know what you think. Do you like this kind of vlog style? Would you like me to make more? Because I had fun kind of just chatting. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.